I'm sure a lot of you guys love manga. And as most of you guys know, manga for the most part has and still continues to be printed in a magazine. Magazines like Weekly Shonen Magazine, Shonen Jump, Young Animal all hold some of your favorite manga series that you all know and love. These magazines have been around for decades. Some like Weekly Shonen Jump and Weekly Shonen Magazine specifically have been around since the beginning of anime and manga itself. Magazines like these are so cool to collect, even for a person who can't even read Japanese. In the West around the early 2000s, we had an English print of Shonen Jump, which got people like me introduced to the wonders of shonen anime. It's just so interesting how each issue can have a whole new series just waiting for you to explore. And I always wondered why the magazine specifically dedicated towards Gundam remains unknown to a large portion of the fan base. I knew this magazine was around for years, but recently I discovered the deep origins of this magazine, and to my surprise, one of my favorite manga series of all time wouldn't even exist without this magazine. But first, let's switch locations. So I know this is a bit weird, but for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be looking at the very first issue of Gundam Ace and comparing it to how it fares today. So starting right off, this is the very first issue of Gundam Ace. So this magazine's conception is a very tricky one. Most manga magazines out there have a huge variety of manga in only one magazine issue. For Shonen Jump, for example, you have stuff like One Piece, Jujutsu Kaisen, My Hero Academia, Chainsaw Man. They all have something in common, being battle shonen. Manga that have a primary focus on action and battles, which is what you would commonly associate with Shonen Jump nowadays with things like Jujutsu Kaisen, My Hero Academia, or Demon Slayer. But there are also other series in that magazine that aren't battle shonen, like for say Blue Box or Rudy Dragon. They aren't remotely focused on action or battles like the other titles I just mentioned. It can also be the same with Weekly Shonen Magazine too. It can also have series like Hajime no Ippo, which if you didn't know is a shonen manga that has a primary focus on boxing and action. And despite that, it can also have series like Rent a Girlfriend in the same magazine, which I'm assuming you guys can guess what it's about from the title alone. So what really makes this magazine stand out is not only the range of stories in this magazine, but that they all are made with the specific purpose of belonging to the Gundam franchise, hence the title Gundam Ace. But how did this entire thing come to be? Well, first off, Kadokawa, a specific company that holds the license to many iconic manga series that you guys might know, specifically came to Yoshikazu Yasuhiko, or Yaz, asking him to create a manga that would revisit the story of the very first Gundam series that aired in 1979. Yasuhiko at that time was a very prolific mangaka and someone who has worked all throughout the manga and anime industries as a director, storyboard artist, animator, character designer, you name it. Despite his reputation clearly preceding him, Yasuhiko turned down the request. This is mainly because he thought that there was no way that he could come back to the story because he viewed it as Yoshiyuki Tomino's work and not his. After Tomino and Yasuhiko's collaboration in the original series in 3 compilation films, they did collaborate once more in Zeta Gundam, but even though Yasuhiko only did the character designs, his own ideas for the story weren't really given that much attention. And as years went on by, he felt more and more annoyed at how the franchise turned out to be, which makes more sense why the team that brought the first series together all decided to collaborate once more in the future with F91, which is meant to turn the Gundam franchise towards a new direction. And we all know how that turned out. And after Yasuhiko initially turned down this request, he was hospitalized. But during this hospitalization, he spent time drawing sketches from the original series. Scenes like Dharma's final stand against the White Base helped him remember how special the story of the first Gundam series was and how much it all meant to him. After he gave it some thought, he ended up going back to Kadokawa and accepting the request. But despite him accepting the offer, Yasuhiko still had more to say on the matter. Even if he did agree to create this manga for Kadokawa, he wanted a few conditions he had in mind to be fulfilled. He wanted around 100 pages of material for each issue, meaning about 2 chapters of material each issue. Yasuhiko also wanted specific color pages to be present in the manga. These mainly serve to open the chapter or specifically highlight important scenes in a certain chapter. If you take a look here, you can see that there's colored pages that belong to the very beginning of every chapter. Stuff like the opening exposition about Zeon's defection in the beginning of the One-Year War are given that special treatment. Even after this, with the Zaku's approaching size 7, it's all in color and it looks fantastic. Even in later issues, there's colored pages as well. These colored pages here specifically are some of my absolute favorite colored pages Yasuhiko created for this manga. This fight between Rambo Ral and Amuro Ray just lives in my head rent-free and I'll never ever shut up about it. So it's safe to say that every issue Gundam the Origin appeared in had colored pages. Even to its final pages of its run, it had these beautiful watercolor pages that just captured the very beauty and even horror of this series. So with these demands met, Yasuhiko was able to tell the story he wanted to tell with no setbacks and no creative restraints. He had full creative freedom and was the main headliner of the magazine for over 10 years until it eventually ended. And not once did it ever drop in quality, which is really cool to think about. Because every series I've ever read in my life continued to change its art style drastically. Series like Kentaro Miura's Berserk or George Morikawa's Hajime no Ippo, which are praised for their artwork, look so different now compared to when they first started serialization. So despite Yasuhiko being on board on the Origin, there was another issue. If you take a look at this issue's girth, it's pretty skinny in size. So naturally they had to add more series. I don't really know all these series here since I can't really read Japanese, but one of these I actually do know, which is Char's Deleted Affair. It's another interesting one because it shares a lot of similarities to how Gundam the Origin came to be. Katakawa also came to Hiroyuki Kitazume to make a retelling of Zeta Gundam, and much like Yasuhiko, he initially declined a request as well. If you're not aware of who Kitazume is, he's pretty much the animation director for Zeta Gundam and Double Zeta. He pretty much defined the look of the series and was also the character designer for Double Zeta and Char's Counterattack 2. He knew Zeta Gundam very well, and because of this, Katakawa gave Kitazume complete creative freedom, meaning he was able to tell the story he wanted to tell. And thus Char's Deleted Affair was born. It's pretty much a prequel to Zeta Gundam that tells the story of what happens to Char after the events of the One-Year War, as well as what made Haman Kar the way that she is in Zeta Gundam. I haven't finished these two manga series yet, but I've heard they're both really good, so that's a very good sign. As for other manga, there's some other ones I've been told are pretty interesting. You have stuff like École du Ciel, which I have no idea what the hell it even means, but it was done by one of my absolute favorite character designers, Haruhiko Mikimoto. If you don't know who he is, he was pretty much the character designer for War in a Pocket, Macross, Super Dimension Century Orgus, Aim for the Top Gunbuster, and the original designer for Gundam Hathaway. Not the film from a few years ago, I'm talking about Yoshiyuki Tomino's original novels from 1988. I have no idea what the series is about, but it looks very pretty and I hear there's an official release for it, so I'll definitely go check it out soon. But switching gears, we have the latest issue, and as you can tell, it's pretty huge, meaning more series are serializing in this magazine. And the more I hear about new and upcoming series from this magazine, the more I feel really bummed out because it'll probably never see the light outside of Japan. There's not that much Gundam manga in the West besides Gundam Wings manga, Gundam Thunderbolt, École du Ciel, and Gundam the Origin, and it's honestly a miracle we even got Beltorchica's children here. But I really want to read so much more Gundam manga out there, but it'll probably never touch the West because it probably won't even sell as well compared to what everyone else likes to follow. Which is why people who are responsible for translating these new and upcoming series, as well as older ones, definitely deserve credit. And it's because of them that we can enjoy some of these series that we otherwise would have no idea about. On the topic of new and upcoming series though, there's a series in particular that really captured my attention because of this one page. It's called The Battle Tales of Flanagan Boone, and it's pretty much a story that takes place during the One-Year War from Zeon's perspective. And it's a really creepy series. Like, the way the Gundam is portrayed here is so fucking creepy, and I really want to see more from this series. Which is what I really love about this magazine. There's so many stories in here that can catch someone's attention. I know people who got hooked on One Piece, Bleach, or Yu Yu Hakusho back in the day because they happened to open up a Shonen Jump magazine and thought those series looked cool. Stuff like that can probably be happening in Japan as I speak, and it's stuff like that that really makes me so happy this magazine exists. While the magazine has had a pretty terrible reputation in recent memory, which did get a ton of deserved backlash by fans, the people behind these stories that get their chance to shine in this magazine deserve a ton of praise. So I guess now that I'm kind of done with what I want to say, I want to thank you guys for watching this one. I know this is kind of a weird format, but if you guys want to see more stuff like this, let me know. And on that topic, do you guys have a favorite Gundam manga? I really want to make another video exploring the many Gundam manga from this magazine if translations exist, but my biggest gripe is that not every single series here is either released in the West or even has a translation. So I probably won't do this, but who knows. But before ending this video off, I want to thank Mina Moon specifically, who is a friend of the channel. Besides being the one who sparked this video idea to me, she knows so much about the franchise and has her own blog where she posts a lot about Gundam. So if you want more informative Gundam knowledge, you should absolutely check her stuff out. I left a link in the description for her blog, but besides all that, thank you guys again for watching. I really had fun with this video, and I hope you guys stay tuned for the next set of videos. It'll probably be my most ambitious ones yet, so thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.